Okay, in this video we are going to look at setting up checkpoints. We'll just set up the one checkpoint in this video, but they can be used multiple times in multiple locations. You can set up a visual sprite, which we'll show towards the end of the video, to indicate where checkpoints are in your game as an identifier. So to begin with, we are going to want to open your character. So the character I've got here. Now, a few things you want to have set up before you get to this point, and hopefully you will have gone through the videos previously. You're going to want your death set up properly, because you want your respawn to work when you die. You may also want to have your health damage set up. They're the main things you're going to need before you start this video. So if you haven't done them, go back to the previous videos and get them done before you start this one. So to begin with, we're going to create a variable. Now, you want this variable to be like I've got here. So if you just click here, add variable, you can change the variable type to a vector. I'd name it respawn location, and then just compile and save, and you'll get the default values to come up. We are also going to need a max health variable. So again, if you add a variable, you want to set this one to be a float, and just call this max health. So to begin with, we're going to begin putting the code together, we're going to create a custom event, and we're going to call this respawn point. Okay, so we've got this respawn point. Then what we're going to want from here is to create this piece of code. So it's visible. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in that respawn location that we just created the variable for, connect that up to a set actor location, and then connect that up to health and max health. You should have health from previous video, so that should all be set up. So just recreate that. We need the set actor location to begin with. Just search it, it should come up. Then we want to bring in the respawn location. So if at any point I'm going too fast, pause the video or catch up, then move forwards. Then we need the health. So basically, we need to set the health based on what you would start the game with. So I'm just going to get the max health, put that in. So basically what this is doing is when you respawn, it's telling you where to respawn and also how much health to give you. So if your health has dropped to 0 and you've died due to damage, unless you reset that health, it will continue to think you're dying because you've got no health. So we need to set that back up to be some sort of value to get you going again. So then what you want to do next while we're in here is go over to your event begin play, and we're just going to drag these out so we've got some space. We're going to get set the max health by getting the health. So basically what this is going to do, it's going to pick up what the health is at this point in the game, set that as the max health, and then that max health can be looked at and taken for when you respawn. So I've put in on the health here on this variable, I've just put in a 0.2, so it gives it something to start with, and that should get you going. So we just compile and save, and then we've got something to start off with. So next we want to set up the actual location, or the checkpoint, if you will. So I've gone back into my folder which is holding everything. I'm just going to create a new folder called checkpoints, because you may have multiple. And inside this checkpoints folder, I'm going to right click, go to Blueprint class, and then actor. So then I'm going to call this checkpoint 1. Inside here, we're going to set up a few things. So on the left, we want to add component. First thing we want is a box collision. So, and then a scene. And then while we're here, we're going to also add a sprite. So a paper sprite. So to begin with, I'm going to select the scene and I'm just going to pull it up to about 10, just so it's a little bit higher and your character is not going to fall through the ground or anything. You may need to tweak this, and that 10 will be used elsewhere as well. Then on the box collision, I'm just going to scroll down, go to the events, and we're going to do the on component begin overlap. So when the component overlaps, or this component is overlapped by the player. So when the player basically goes past the checkpoint, then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the other actor, pull this out. You want to cast this to your character, so mine is the goblin character. Make sure you've named your character, else it might be a struggle to find. Then once this is set up, you want to get your scene. So the scene up here, you can just drag this in. Then from here, you should be able to get world location. And then I believe from here, you should be able to set respawn location. So it's pulling that variable that we created in the character. And then what we can do is we can just put this in here. And then I believe that target needs to go back to the goblin character. Yeah, I think that's right. Compile, save that. And then we're just going to go to our paper sprite, go back to your viewport up here. And we're just going to set this sprite. So you'll need to create a sprite for whatever you want this to be. Again, in previous videos we've shown this, done this a few times, so I'm not going to go through that. But I'm just going to search in mine for, find it, this square thing here. Compile and save. Also with this this sprite, when you make it, you may want to make it have no collision box, just so your character doesn't glitch out at all when it's trying to respawn on top of it. You can just walk past it, sort of thing. So save that, and then that is done. So while we're here, so we don't have to come back to it, we're just going to drag this checkpoint in. So you might not be able to see it very well at the moment. It is over there. You want it to be at 0 on the Y, and I'm going to scale mine right up, maybe 3. So I've got this nice square box. Obviously the sprite is now like the visual indicator of where that checkpoint is. I've just used that box with the question mark thing on it, but you can use whatever you want to identify as the checkpoints. So it's just on this little ledge up here, just not far after you start, but as you can see we've got death boxes here and damage box here, so I can show it working. So before we go testing it, we need to set up a respawn when you die, so it actually does the respawn. So if we go back into our character, and here we have the event tick, and I've got the death part on this part, and hopefully if you've watched previous videos you will understand this. I've also got the death when the health hits 0, or if it's below 0, and some damage stuff here. So the big bit we're looking at is the do once, the flipbook function which we set up, which applies the death animation. Then disable input delay, sets the other flip book for when the player is dead and just laying on the floor. Then you have a delay, and then here we're going to add, just before the enable input again, the respawn. So if I search respawn, it'll come up with a function, the respawn point. So what this is going to do is going to run this at that section and then enable input again. So this is all working fine. The next thing we need to do is ensure this can happen multiple times. So at the moment it's just going to do it once because we've got that do once there. Now what we want is to grab this set and connect it up to this reset up here on the do once. Now that's quite a distance, so you might need to zoom out a bit and drag across. Now you'll see the wire, the line is behind everything. So to clean that up a bit, you can double click on the line and it'll add a dot or a pin. You can then drag that pin and pin it somewhere else, so you're starting to pull it out of the way. And you can do another one here, and again just pin it up so it's a bit cleaner, you can see where everything's going. So the final section that I want to do is, I'm hoping this all works, is if we were to die before we reach a checkpoint, it's going to have a few issues because it's going to think, oh, we need to respawn, and try and have nowhere to respawn out. So what we need to do, we need to, on this event begin play, is we need to set up that respawn. So to do this, we can go down to our variable, we'll drag in the respawn location and set it. So we get something like this to begin with. Connect this up, and then to decide the actual location of this, if you will, clean this up, we are going to get the actor's location, we are going to put an add on this. So if you search the plus sign, we're looking for the vector plus vector, and then we're going to connect this up. So this is going to get the location as soon as you begin the game and set that as the respawn point. So if you haven't hit a respawn location, this will be the first place it will set that to, and then it will go back to this. This then, what we're going to do is we've added the add, so we can add 10 again to the Z, just so it drops the character slightly above where it needs to be, just so it doesn't have any glitches with the floor or anything. You might be able to tweak this lower and stuff just so it doesn't appear like you're falling on the floor or something, but this should all work now. So we save and we shall test. So to play, got my character. Now I know this in front of me is the checkpoint, so I'm going to try and jump over that checkpoint. Hopefully I have missed that. And then I'm going to die down here, and it does respawn me back at the start, so that's working fine. So we're just going to try again. And this time we're going to go past the checkpoint, so you can see I can just walk behind it. You could set the location to be further back, so you walk in front of it, and then if I now die, I respawn up here on the respawn location. So that's all working. And if I take damage, again it does the same thing, so I can do that a couple of times, and it's just working over and over again. So that's it for this video.